When parents and families discover that their child has autism, they tend to have a lot of problems in knowing what to do, what type of intervention, how they should view the subject, and how they should basically treat their child, and what type of interventions that they should do and they can do. So there's so much information on the subject. I'm going to make a small short video to discuss the general views on the subject that will help you understand what different opinions are there. And I will also be setting my opinion and my knowledge on the subject. My name is Wael Al-Jirdi, for those who don't know me. I'm a holistic health coach and I work with families and parents who have kids with autism, and I help them train their child and recover their child through dietary and relationship interventions, which will basically help their child acquire the necessary lifestyle and relationship skills that are necessary for development. So without further ado, let's start with the subject. General idea about autism, from what I see it, is that it's an issue in how the brain is functioning in terms of processing information. Okay? It's not like there's a problem in the brain and that is affecting the physical health. Of course, there might be certain issues in that aspect where like the body has physical health problems, and we see maybe gut issues, a little bit of maybe hormonal in some cases problems, etc., etc. But there's no intellectual problems. So we have to separate between these two to start with. We want to separate between autism and intellectual disability. Okay, so kids with autism do not have intellectual disability. If some do, it's very few percentage. Okay, but it's not generally the case. So what is the problem with autism? Autism is a problem in how the brain is processing information. Okay, so how the brain is receiving the information in the world around them and how it's processing it. Okay, all that data. Our brain, usually and in our day-to-day life, goes from things that are static, so processing things in a static way, or in a dynamic way. Dynamic processing is when we try to figure out things on our own, right? Things that could be challenging. As for the static way, it's something that is repetitive. Like you woke up in the morning, you had to brush your teeth, do your bed, and then have breakfast, etc., etc. So you're doing something that is the same every day, okay? Now we need both types of processing. So the dynamic processing is going to the supermarket and getting so many things that are necessary for that. Maybe you didn't find that, or that ingredient specifically, so you had to change to another ingredient or change the recipe, right? It has to do with change when it comes to our day-to-day life. As for the static, means that, oh, we're doing something that is repetitive, something that we can expect, okay? So these two ways of processing information, every typical development is going to acquire. But it's not the case with kids who have autism. Okay, kids who have autism will have low processing to dynamic processing information and high static processing, which means that they are only processing information in a static way. Okay, and what that will basically create is an avoidance towards anything that is challenging. Okay, so the static way of processing is the way that kids who have autism are processing information. Okay, so what that will create is the children will start avoiding anything that has to do with change. Okay, so people change, relationship change, anything that could acquire them to change will actually be scary, or they will start avoiding because it's going to be overstimulating, and once they include that information, their body cannot respond to it. They cannot process it, right? So they don't really know what to do with it. That's why like facial expression could be a problem as well, right? So what happens is during the early stages of life, kids who have autism will start increasing the static way of processing and decreasing the dynamic processing. Okay, it happens naturally as a reaction to several causes, but this starts to happen. So they will start avoiding anything that have to do with the dynamic processing, and especially relationship. Okay, there are several things that has to do with the dynamic processing, but one of the most important things in development is relationship. So relationships are dynamic. Now, of course, there are certain relationships that are static, like, for example, your relationship with a specific toy. You're going to play with that toy in the same way every day, right? It doesn't matter the place or the case. You will always play with that toy because it's not changing. So your relationship with things is going to be static. But the relationship that you're building with other people, people are going to change, right? And especially parents are going to, of course, try to engage with the child, and that's going to be challenging to the child. So what happens is the child will break that bond, will avoid the parent-child relationship, will avoid connecting with other people, and will avoid basically the acquisition of the relationship skills that are necessary. Because in relationship, that is how critical thinking is going to be emerging. That's how we're going to start learning. Language, for example, is going to be learned through relationships. We don't learn language at school or by reading books. We learn it by including it in our environment. Okay, so what happens here, once the child starts getting overwhelmed by the information and the dynamic processing, the child will start avoiding all that information, and of course the skills and novelty, which is the knowledge, will start decreasing. Okay, so the child will start avoiding the parent-child relationship, will start avoiding the sibling dynamic, and will prevent him or herself from catching on the language and putting it into practice, which is basically expression. And without practice, without that challenge to include the dynamic processing, the child will not have the ability to know how to speak, right? So speech will come through practice. Okay, so the child will avoid speech, and basically the child will also avoid trying, right? The child will not try, like is not willing to try and develop. Okay, so that's basically autism. Now, I'm going to leave my opinion till the end, okay? And I'm going to show you the two basically spectrums, not spectrums, two extremes of how parents and advocates see this situation. Okay, so I'm going to call it as right side and left side. No political views or anything like that. I'm not political myself, but there's one right extreme and there's one left extreme. So we're going to be talking about them both. So let's start about the extreme right. Okay, the extreme right say that autism just emerged in the last few decades, and that is a reaction of several environmental changes, and of course that affected the body, and then therefore there was this change in the child. And many of these parents or advocates, etc., show and present some valuable information which could make sense, right? But it's not the case with every child, so that's going to leave their case on halt, right? But what they say basically is that toxins is what's creating autism, what is basically making these children sensory, right? Having sensory issues and having gut problems, having nervous system problems, and avoiding society. And also there's brain toxicity, there's body toxicity, and they are saying that it's on the rise, etc., etc. So the far right, extreme right, okay, their approach is there's something wrong in the body. Okay, there's something wrong, there's something that came from the outside world and damaged the child. okay? And those are basically toxins, mercury, aluminum, that damage the child, and our only way to help the child is to eliminate these toxins. So those people, these families, if you're listening to this and you are on that side, I truly appreciate you, and nothing against you, but basically you're basically thinking that there's toxins and those are causing the damage, right? So you basically start seeing ways on how to eliminate these toxins. How can we basically help or fix the body in a way that will eliminate the toxins, basically, right? So basically, parents who are on the right side will start including things like supplements, vitamins, maybe go for stem cell therapy, because that will be helpful, detox sprays because it will eliminate toxins and detoxify the body from the toxins that are damaging the body, heavy metal detox, parasite cleanses, homeopathy, all these things are associated with that type of thinking, okay? So this is the right side. Now, the right side is not wrong, okay? As I said, like, I'm going to give my honest opinion about the right side and the left side, and both are correct, okay? But also both are missing certain information that are important, okay? So the far right that are saying that it's toxicity, etc., they are not acknowledging that there's a very important difference between removing toxins and protecting the body, right? So they're somehow bypassing the importance of protecting the body and helping the child in that aspect, and they're prioritizing the toxins, okay? Which can also bring problems to the body. It's like basically going to force the toxins outside the body when the body is not ready for it, and also not to take into consideration that certain supplements or certain treatments, certain approaches can have side effects, okay? And there are proof that some supplements and some therapies have side effects, okay? So going also to add that they say that it's on the rise, right? But also, if we look at it, the diagnosis did get more critical, right? And they started like putting in level 1, level 2, level 3. Some kids, like, they are labeled as autistic, but they have the ability to engage, etc., etc., right? So the diagnosis got a little bit wider when it comes to that. So that can also basically justify why it's on the rise. So this is the right side, which I agree with to a certain extent, but not fully. Now for the left side, which I also agree with to a certain extent, but not fully, the left side say that it's a genetic issue, okay? And that they are special in their own way. We should not care basically about autism recovery or any intervention. Let them just be themselves, and we shouldn't really care about trying to fix anything or trying to help anything, etc., etc. So it's basically these two dynamics, right? Like these two extremes, two sides of the extremes. And it's basically the opposite of the right side. And in autism acceptance, they are promoting this aspect. So the left side of the equation, the extreme of, like, we don't really have to do anything. Let's just celebrate autism. Let's take it with a pride. These kids are born special and they experience life in their own way. And we basically have to accommodate the world for them, okay? And we basically should love them for who they are, okay? So those parents will refuse any intervention, think that it is not necessary, this extreme side. And my view on that why I think they are right is, in a certain point, is that they are not overstressing themselves and creating this environment that there's a sense of extreme urgency to do something. And I feel that is a very positive thing, because when we are trying to push every button, when we're trying to do so many things and we're trying to do the best for the child, and in our intentions, of course, we're trying to do our best and help the child, we are going to maybe create unnecessary stress, right? And that can be seen by like some therapies, some treatments, etc., right? So I like that in this left extreme, where they are like stepping away, giving some opportunity to assess, and those parents will like have more relaxed environment, okay? They're not stressing themselves. Because we have to understand something. The more that you are stressed about the intervention, the more that you are stressed about your child's case, the more your child is going to be stressed as well. Okay, so in that aspect, I like the left side, but my only thing that I catch there is that they are refusing to do something about it. Okay, and my view on it is that it's not genetics. It's something that can be triggered by the environment that caused something in the genetics, but it's not something that we cannot work on, right? Like, for example, if let's say someone who has like a tumor, for example, we can say that it's a genetic thing, but we can always work on improving that individual's life. Like if they have cancer, if they have any autoimmune problems, etc., it doesn't mean that we shouldn't help that individual, right? And I'm not saying that the left side is not helping. Of course, they're trying their best to help, but that extreme thinking on both sides, that extreme thinking is not going to reap the results that we need, okay? And the reason why I feel that the two extremes are not going to reap the results is because the solution is in between. Okay, it's not on the far right and it's not on the far left. Okay, the solution is going to be in the middle. Okay, so we have to, of course, include things that will help nourish the body, that are going to heal the body, etc., but also we don't want to abuse it in a way that it's too much on the child. Okay, so that's a very, very critical point, and I think it's very important. I also see a very good common aspect in both of these parents, because they both love their children, and that's the most beautiful thing. And I think like there's something that is separating them, although they have some of the main goals, right? They both have a main goal, which is giving their child the best future that they can have, right? And leaving all the judgments, all the opinions, all the theories. I think those two sides should start understanding each other a bit more, instead of like isolating themselves each on one side and basically not getting together, right? So I'm standing here in the middle. I'm saying that this is the way forward, is to look at it not from the extreme right, which is, oh, there's toxins and we have to try anything, etc., and be stressed over it. And not on the extreme left, which is, we don't really have to fix, there's no physical health problems, there's no triggers, etc., diet will not help, all that stuff. No, we have to start going more into understanding the other side, why they're thinking like that, and this side also understanding that side, because the answer is going to be lying in between. Okay? So this is all what I had to say in this video. I really appreciate if you stuck around and listened to this. For me, I support both sides and try to give the critical information that are necessary to help our children. Okay? As I said, to repeat what's happening with autism, it's a processing problem. brain processing problem and a mental processing problem, where the child avoids processing dynamic information, and the child will start processing static information. And the static information, of course, is not something that is bad. It's something that is essential, like we need it in our day-to-day life, but we also need the dynamic processing. Okay, so that's it for today. It was great talking about this subject. I felt like there was like a huge stone that I removed from over my chest, and it was great just talking about it. There's a link down below if you want to check it. You don't really have to, but if you want a more thorough approach and help, you can check it out. And there's a Facebook group link as well. You can join that. I just started it. And other than that, leave me a like if you like this video. And also, I would love to know your thoughts on it. If you're on the extreme right or on the extreme left, and maybe you're an ex-right thinker or ex-left thinker, and just let's create a community where we are bringing balance to that, because basically we all want the same goal. We want better lives, independent of who is right and who is wrong. We want something that is applicable. See you on the next one.